Women often experience burnout to higher degrees than men, but are less likely to take time away from work. So my work now is really aimed at tackling those burnout statistics. The pause is the first step, and this is rooted in neuroscience too, and that is about just calming the nervous system. And you can do that simply with a breath. I probably did have a bit of resentment around my second maternity leave, and I was offered the promotion to editor-in-chief from editor at Hello. And I probably went back to work a bit sooner than I was ready to. I remember having those conversations with my boss saying we need to better support women with flexible working. And it felt trailblazing at the time when we were all expected to be in the office 5 days a week. I think having that bit of flexibility is really what working parents need, and this counts for dads as well.
Today on the Showing Up Stronger podcast, I'm joined by a woman who knows what it means to completely reinvent yourself. Rosie Nixon spent 16 years as editor-in-chief of Hello and senior roles at Grazia, Glamour and Red, where she shaped stories at the highest level of media. But behind the success, she hit burnout and made the brave decision to rebuild her life from the inside out. She's now a 5-time author, coach, and founder of Reinvention Retreats, and editor of the column magazine at Corinthia London, helping women rewrite their narratives and step into a new chapter with clarity and confidence, all while raising a family. Today, we're talking about identity, burnout, reinvention, and what it really takes to show up for yourself when life forces you to change. So, Rosie, thank you so much for coming to join.
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Thank you. So my first question for you is, who is Rosie Nixon?
Oh, gosh. Well, I've been her for 50 years now, so I should know pretty well, shouldn't I? I think in midlife, I feel like I'm having a bit of a rebirth. So I'm very passionate about the concept of reinvention and a reinvention mindset, because I believe very strongly that the only thing we know for sure in our lives is that we're going to be navigating lots of change. So it's up to us to navigate it in a way that feels healthy and fulfilling and joyful for ourselves. And I guess I've come to this realization after going through my own experience of burnout, of changing my career in my late 40s. I'm a mother, as you mentioned, of 2 boys who are now 12 and 10, and navigating that is a huge chapter in any woman's life. I don't think there's ever been such a big change moment as giving birth to your first child. And so, yeah, I'm dead after spending a long time in the media, 25 plus years, including 16 years as editor and editor-in-chief of Hello magazine. I now use all of that wisdom and learned experience from throughout my career, and I've repackaged it into something around supporting women through reinvention moments.
I love that. That's
in a
amazing.
nutshell.
That's so, I mean, that is, yeah, exactly. We are going to talk about it. So journalism, what got you into journalism?
Yeah. Well, I think I was always a very kind of chatty youngster, and I loved stories, both reading stories and storytelling. I was quite a prolific letter writer when I was a child as well. I used to get smash hits delivered every week, and I would kind of cut out the song words, all the pop songs, and refashion them into my own magazine.
I did that too.
Did you?
Oh my gosh.
As well as making all the mixtapes to go alongside. So I guess I was already starting to curate my content at a young age, and journalism really is about being really nosy about other people's stories, and you become the conduit to telling those stories to a wider audience. So I've always loved that concept, and actually storytelling is still very at the heart now of my coaching style. And it was an amazing career for me. I started off actually as editor of Barbie magazine. So obviously writing a magazine all about Barbie and Ken.
That's been so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was just me and a designer. So I was the editor of it. She used to design the pages. Everything used to have to get approved by Mattel, who obviously owned the Barbie license. And it was a fortnightly magazine. So I learned about every stage of the editorial process. And also the responsibility that an editor has to convey material that is suitable for that audience. And when that audience is probably one of the most impressionable, young girls, that's a huge responsibility. So I would always try and make Barbie be an empowering character, as feminist as she could be, and the boss rather than the assistant.
That's so good.
In her career. Yeah, so that was great fun. And then I slowly kind of went up in age with my magazines through teen magazines. Do you remember Bliss magazine?
Of course. No way.
When there was Just 17 and Sugar and Ms. and Bliss. And I became a celebrity editor there at a time when celebrity was starting to explode and sell magazines and products more than models. So that was kind of a new role, really, on a magazine at that time. We started putting stars, easily recognisable stars, on the front of the magazine. It was people like Julia Stiles at the time, and Mandy Moore and Kelly Osbourne. The Osbournes was a huge show.
I love it.
So I started to cultivate my little black book, I guess, from those days. And then I've worked at lots of British women's national magazines, including Red magazine, Glamour when it went to handbag size, Looks magazine, New Woman, Grazia when it launched for a couple of years. And then I've sort of found my home at Hello for a really long period of time.
I love that story, and that is giving me such a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Honestly, just going back to the smash hits, I remember the first card I ever cut out was the Anastasia one.
Oh,
and
yes.
hers was the first concert I ever went to.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I took my smash hit song words and sang at a concert. Honestly, I love that. That's
and sitting watching Top of the Pops with smash hits with the song words.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing. We had to go to a magazine. That's the part that they played in so many of our lives when we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media or access to anything at our fingertips. You had to wait for that magazine to drop through the letterbox.
It's so true.
To keep up to date with popular culture.
That nostalgia is very good. I love that. That really is exciting.
Yeah.
So you obviously had, an incredible, hugely successful career at Hello. Tell me more about that. What was it like?
Well, it was an amazing time to work for Hello, and I feel really privileged actually for having this sort of ringside seat on celebrity culture for such a long period of time. It was a fast-paced working life. We were sort of a hybrid between a glossy magazine and a newspaper in lots of ways. Being weekly, we could react very quickly to news. And at that time, again, in the early days of when I worked at Hello in sort of 2008, there wasn't the digital offering that we now see and all the multi-platforms that you can consume media on. That wasn't the case. We had a website, but it was a sort of afterthought. Whereas now most magazines, Hello included, will be digital first with the latest news, and then the magazine is a more of a reflective look at what has happened in the week before, because you can't ever keep the pace up, when you've got social media breaking stories every second. So at that time, there was great currency in celebrities working with a media partner like Hello to convey their news, and the first pictures of their homes and their new babies and their weddings, they were all huge currency for Hello. And we could sell 500,000 to 1 million copies in a week. So it was an absolutely huge title at that time. And it was great to be at the helm of it. It was a real team effort. We were quite a small team, but very dedicated, with some absolutely brilliant writers who would get front row seats to the lives of the rich and the famous and the fabulous. So I was very lucky to attend lots of showbiz weddings and occasions and homes all around the world.
What was one of the most memorable that's really stuck to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was always memorable running a team in a huge historic occasion like a royal wedding, and the wedding of William and Kate was obviously massive for Hello, and the team were out all around the city of London on that day and in Westminster Abbey, and I was actually in the office sort of sifting through thousands of images to put together this historic issue as quickly as we could. So that was always exciting. As was, I often refer to Robbie Williams' wedding, which is an amazing exclusive that I had. And it was only the couple, their manager and me, that knew Robbie and Ida were getting married at their home in LA. So I flew out to do the interview with the couple the night before the wedding in their bedroom as the wedding was being set up. Even the family thought they were going to some kind of music party, or he was going to announce something about a new album. None of them realised it was a wedding until they arrived. Yeah, because we had to keep it exclusive and quiet because this was a world exclusive. So the Paps were always playing a cat and mouse chase at that time. They were more lawless than they are now. Things have changed so much. And now, celebrities control their own images so tightly because they have that voice through their social media platforms of connecting with their fan bases so directly and easily and quickly. But that wasn't the case back then. So there was amazing sort of deals to be struck to convey these first images. The very first look would be on the newsstand on a printed copy of Hello. So it was really exciting. We had something like that.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And so what did it take for you to step away from there?
Well, yeah, in that time, obviously 16 years is a huge amount of time. And I did so much growing up in that time. Met my husband while I was at Hello, became a mum fairly late. I had my kids at 38 and 40 to my two boys, and thrived in that fast-paced world for a long time, and, managed to hold it all down when I had really young kids as well. Somehow I look back and think, God, they were definitely crazy days. And then as the advent of digital platforms rose, I found that my role was changing a lot. I was spread more thinly across the whole brand, hosting a podcast, hosting lots of events, more involved with commercial, managing teams, and news was breaking 24/7, obviously, and we had to be there to react to it. So it's no surprise, really, that I eventually hit burnout in 2022. Which was a massive shock to my system. And I think for lots of us, that startling realization that stress lives in your nervous system. You can't run on adrenaline forever. It's completely unsustainable. And I think I'd been doing that for a really long time. And it was as though I woke up one morning after hosting a big event for Hello, and it was as though all the adrenaline had left my body. It was on the back of the Queen passing away, which happened in September 22. I'd then gone into hosting a big event. I hadn't had a weekend off for a number of weeks. It'd just been non-stop. And I was missing my kids. I wanted to be at home with them. And I just thought, I'm done. I just don't want to do this chapter anymore. And that had probably been building up for maybe a couple of years to that point. But we ignore the warning signs because we have to keep certain balls in the air. We can't afford to drop some of them. And I felt the pressure of my role, putting a magazine to bed every week, even though I wasn't saving lives on a daily basis. It can really feel intense when you're in that moment. And I think for a lot of women, the reason we don't seek support is because we have that feeling of like, well, I should just get on with it. Actually, there's probably a lot of people that have it much worse. And that negates our own needs for support. So I kept going and going and going until I just couldn't anymore. And it was my body's turn to say, you have to stop. So I was signed off by a doctor for 6 weeks on the verge of burnout. So I feel lucky, actually, that I caught it before it became full burnout, which can be really debilitating for people, and they end up having months or longer off work. So I caught it, but that actually gave me an opportunity to stop and to consider what I actually wanted from this next chapter of my life. And that became a life-changing moment for me.
How did you know that it was just getting too much?
Yeah, well, I think the signs had been building up, as I said, for months and probably a couple of years. My sleep was not great, and I was 47, 48 at this time, which is a time where perimenopause kind of begins, and there were definitely hormonal shifts that were probably impacting that. But going to see the doctor to talk about HRT or how I could better support myself was another thing on the to-do list that there never seemed to be time to do. So the lack of sleep, feelings of anxiety, running on empty, feeling just not quite myself, being short and kind of not relaxed, and finding it hard actually to relax even at weekends or on holidays. Like, I think I'd forgotten how to switch off. I was pretty much glued to my phone and the constant alerts of news breaking and thinking how we needed to respond to things. So a lot of it, I think, was down to that. But plus the culmination of having done something for a really long time and thinking, I just don't know that I'm fueled by this anymore. I think our values shift as we age, our needs evolve, our strengths have evolved over that period of time. So it's probably quite natural that we hit points in our lives where one chapter's ready to close and a new one's perhaps meant to open. But that, traditionally has been labelled a midlife crisis. So I now like to refer to that as a midlife calling, that perhaps something else is calling you. So how do you tune into that little voice and start to honour those feelings before you become unwell or it tips into burnout or things go wrong or you're exhausted?
I like that. I mean, that turns what could be a negative into a positive.
Yeah, because actually it's okay to have evolved. I think this is what having some time away from work, in my case, I was forced to take that pause, but now I really encourage the women that come on my retreats and that I work with in coaching that to give ourselves those pause moments and a chance for a bit of reflection, because ideally that wouldn't be a necessity because your health has taken a downward turn. But actually having that opportunity was game changing for me because I could ask myself those really big questions about what is this life for? What do I want to achieve in this next chapter? What is really important to me at this stage of life and how am I going to honour that?
This episode is sponsored by Revive Active, the multi-award-winning supplement brand that's enjoyed by customers every 1.3 seconds. Why the popularity and what's the difference between all of those other supplements out there? It's simple. Revive Active uses only the very best science-backed ingredients in their formulas, with no added nasties, while ensuring that the synergy of ingredients increases their effectiveness, giving you power, purity, and positivity in every single product. Choose from truly comprehensive and great tasting powders or a range of clever capsules to support you whatever stage of life you're at. Supporting everything from energy, cognitive function, heart health, and even a restful night's sleep. Taken by health experts, elite athletes, and everyone in between, find out how Revive Active can support you and your family. Find Revive Active in Boots, Holland & Barrett, pharmacies and health stores, or online at reviveactive.com. For exclusive discounts for all Showing Up Stronger podcast listeners, simply use the code STRONGER15. And so when you felt like that you were approaching that point, did you speak to someone? Did you reach out? What happened?
Coaching was really, really helpful for me. And I think being a wordsmith, it appealed to me as well, because in a sense it is about looking at your story and how you're telling it to yourself and asking those really honest questions about maybe the narrative needs to change. So I worked with a coach initially and that was transformative. And then I loved everything about that mindset so much. I did start to think, God, maybe this is something I want to explore. And that meant some really honest conversations then with my boss. So I had a deeper understanding of what my values are at this stage of life. And one of my values was freedom, being on my own schedule. I felt like I had earned that. I'd got to a stage in my working career where I didn't want to have to book off half a day because I needed to be around for the children or had something to do. And I wanted to take all of those experiences from my journalistic career and repackage them into something that could be purposeful and support others. So my values, that was really telling. Another one of my values is family. And again, I felt like I was not as present as I wanted to be, both mentally as well as physically. I could be physically present sometimes, but my mind was always somewhere else, thinking about what emails I needed to respond to, what's going to be on the cover of the magazine, or what's happening in the meetings that I've got set up for the following day. So I just wanted to be a lot more present. Inspiring others was one of my values. And whilst I was able to do some of that in my role at Hello, I wanted more of that and to really build a platform that was based on my own stories this time, rather than just being the conduit of other people's stories. So coaching really gives you a space in order to work through some of those bigger questions and to evoke self-awareness that we so rarely have time to sit down and work through on our own.
No. I mean, I think it's important to write it down, honour it, and have that self-awareness to it as well. I think that's really important.
And then coupled with that, then has to be accountability.
Absolutely.
And the coaching environment helps create that accountability, because you think, right, well, by the next session, I want to have taken a few steps forward on this. And you feel like you're on a journey.
Yeah.
And that you're supported and your feelings are validated, which we all need.
No, definitely. Do you think it's mainly high achieving women who are more vulnerable to this, or do you think all women?
I think it's absolutely universal, and the stats around burnout and chronic exhaustion show that. Mental Health UK is a mental health charity. They produce a burnout report every year. The one came out at the beginning of this year showing that 1 in 3 people in the UK are burnt out or exhibiting some of the signs of burnout, which is a massive statistic. So 1 in 3 of us is maybe, perhaps silently as well, feeling utterly overwhelmed and exhausted. So stress is a major, concern for the healthcare system as well. It costs the British economy billions each year. It costs organisations huge sums in absenteeism and presenteeism in the workplace. Women often experience burnout to higher degrees than men, but are less likely to take time away from work. So there is that feeling that it's natural you'd be overwhelmed if you're juggling being a mum and family life alongside a job. So often, it is the silent sort of, health concern that bubbles away until you reach a point where you actually can't do it anymore. So my work now is really aimed at tackling those burnout statistics, talking about how we're feeling, giving ourselves an opportunity to pause. And I think the pause is so underrated in society and within organisations. Really looking back at that time in October 2022 when I had my I'm done moment, if I'd built some pause moments into my week, especially the day after a huge event, just to recalibrate. I was in energy deficit. I'm not, a Duracell bunny that can be plugged in. I need to recalibrate. I mean, it seems mad that we don't ever prioritise that. So now I prioritise pause moments and thrive time in my diary just as I would any important meeting, because I know it's absolutely essential if I'm going to do all the things that I want to do in my working and my life.
And so what would pause time and what would thrive time moments look like for you?
Well, pause time, it's the first step of, on all of my retreats, I use a framework which I call Reinvent Like a Pro, and this is actually the basis of the book I've written that's coming out.
It's the Pro method.
The Pro method, yes. Yeah. And Pro stands for pause, reflect and organise. And I believe in these 3 stages wholeheartedly, and that in fact they can help us make any decision about something we want to do or a decision that we need to make about our lives. I've got them engraved, pause, reflect, organise, on my bracelet, and as a constant reminder. And the pause is the first step, and this is rooted in neuroscience too, and that is about just calming the nervous system. And you can do that simply with a breath. Just breathing in for 4, holding for 2, and then breathing out for 6 is an instant nervous system calm. So when we feel kind of in that fight or flight state of overwhelm, a simple pause moment is just to focus on the breath, to regulate the nervous system so that you're a bit calmer, and root yourself in the present. It means not rushing to fix something or make a decision or be knee-jerk. Just root yourself in the moment. And then you can move on to reflect, which is about getting curious about how you feel. So with me, it was asking myself those big questions about why am I feeling like this? What could be going on here? Showing yourself a bit of compassion as the way you would talk to a friend. It's no wonder I was feeling like that after all this build up. And when you look at the picture of what was going on in life, and for so many women, we don't give ourselves that compassion and that understanding. So getting sort of curious about what could be going on, and then you're ready to move into organised mode, which is thinking about what you're going to do about it. So the pause doesn't have to be a kind of just lying on the sofa doing nothing. Although for some people that is necessary, and what it might be, it can be as simple as a breath. For me, it's often going outside for a walk. Getting out into nature is a great way to spend pause moments, and they can be micro moments throughout the day. And then Thrive Time, I love because that is about the guilt-free doing things that bring you joy and make you thrive. And that might be, for me, it's often when there's nobody in the house, or even if there is people in the house, putting on the dance music that I love. It's just an instant mood lifter. I love baking a cake. That's my go-to for Thrive Time as well. If it's been a really busy week, I think I just need to make my banana bread. And and I'll do something like that. Or time with friends, the person that always makes you really laugh and they're a mood lifter for you. Just consciously putting in your diary the things that you know will support you and boost you in times of, busyness or overwhelm.
What's your go-to dance song?
Oh God! Well, I love a bit of Candy Staton.
Oh,
You've got the
nice.
love.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I did used to go to the Ibiza closing parties for a number of years. So take me back to that kind of sound.
Music's
really
very different
happy
now.
Well, music is such a kind of dopamine. It's a natural high. Even if I go out for a run or a walk, sometimes I need to just go and do that in silence because the overwhelm is there and I just need to listen to the bird song and the leaves and clear my mind. Other times I'm really up for a run with banging house music and it really lifts my mood. But again, it's about being conscious in those decisions that you make because they're actually not small. They could be the things that are holding you together.
I mean, that's definitely true. So let's talk about motherhood.
Yes.
How did you juggle being a mother and becoming a mother, which is huge, whilst having such a high-powering job?
Yeah, well, I really wanted to become a mum for a few years before I did, and I just wasn't getting pregnant. I had that thing called unexplained infertility where it just wasn't happening. And then I started to get that investigated, and then but sort of alongside kind of working, was kind of thinking, why isn't this happening? And then did eventually get it investigated, which I'd urge anyone to do if you are sort of unsure why things are not happening. The biological clock is very real for women. And, I was very wedded to my career and loved it at the time. But it took me quite a long time to begin to sort of investigate things. And then I had a polyp removed from the womb and I got pregnant immediately. So if I had done that before, it probably would have happened a lot sooner. But I believe everything happens in the time that it's meant to and for a reason. So when I did get pregnant and then got pregnant again quickly after the first one, it felt like the greatest gift and I was over the moon, as it really is. I mean, it's so precious. And I know lots of people that have struggled with pregnancy, especially now when, you hit 50s and coming to terms with that, if it's not going to happen for you, is really tough. So I feel so lucky and grateful to have become a mum. And so juggling that in those early days, I probably did have a bit of resentment around my second maternity leave, and I was offered the promotion to editor-in-chief from editor at Hello. And I probably went back to work a bit sooner than I was ready to. But again, hopefully I'm making up for that time now. And we managed that through, at the time I was living in London, my parents would come and do a day a week's childcare support for us. And then we had a nanny for some of the other days, and I always tried to work from home one day a week, which was a battle at that time. I remember having those conversations with my boss saying we need to better support women with flexible working. And it felt trailblazing at the time when we were all expected to be in the office 5 days a week. I think having that bit of flexibility is really what working parents need, and this counts for dads as well. Because as we all know, if we are trusted to get the work done, see the work as a whole rather than be counting the hours and the time, then we sure as hell can be productive in the time that we need to be. So it was always a juggle, childcare wise. We went through periods of time. My husband's an entrepreneur where he was building his business. I was the main kind of earner and, working away at Hello. So he would be more on call for the kids if they needed picking up from nursery or school, and worked more locally, and I was in town. And then things have swapped. I guess, again, the chapters that our lives go in. And then his work became really busy. I started to feel like I wanted to reinvent my career, so I was able to do that because he could hold the fort financially for a bit. So it's always been about communication between the two of us. You think you've got it down in childcare for a period of time, and then a year later that is all thrown up because one of them's going to a different school or their ages change. So it is a constant kind of figuring out what is going to work for you. We've been very lucky nanny-wise, and I've had an amazing nanny who still works for us, a bit less than she did before because the kids are getting older, but without having parents to rely on. Obviously now don't live near my parents, and my husband's parents have both passed away. We had to get external childcare because there wasn't that support. So I think, you can't judge anybody for the way that they try to manage childcare and a career. But I'm not going to pretend it's easy.
It's definitely not easy.
It's definitely not easy.
And every day is different.
It changes, and every day can be different. And it changes all the time. So having that flexibility and the ability, I feel really lucky that I've got such a solid relationship, and we've always been able to discuss things and figure it out between us. And he is a hands-on dad, is amazing. I mean, it's very difficult if you're a single parent as well. Because unfortunately there still isn't the flexibility that women need in the workplace.
I know, and I mean that definitely we're still fighting. Yeah. People are fighting on a daily basis. I know there's lots of campaigns about that.
Yeah,
it needs to continue on both the mother side and the parent,
and also the
side.
School side. Having after school provisions, and school. Typically, if you're in the state school system, it finishes at 3:15 in the afternoon. It's really hard to hold down a full-time job when you can't, do the school pickup halfway through the afternoon. So better provisions of wraparound care are often needed, and that comes at a cost.
I know, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably expensive. Who would you say your key supporters are?
Yeah, well, I think my husband and I, and also having friends that are all going through it, we support each other all the time, and we talk about what's worked for us. And I think sharing the details of a particularly great childminder or nanny can be a lifesaver, because it's really hard to find the right person on whom to entrust your child. But I think we need to have these conversations, because it's not a one size fits all. It's so different how each individual family decides to piece together what they're going to do. And for some women, that does mean leaving the workforce for a period of time, because it just makes more economic and sense to them personally to be around and do the lion's share of the childcare. And that's great too. And again, my retreats and coaching are often attended by women that are re-entering the workforce after a period of time, and that is a full-on role, But again, as we dig into on the retreats and through coaching, all of those skills that you have used as a master juggler are useful for what you might do later on in terms of career. So nothing is wasted.
No, yeah. and as you said, there's no one size fits all, and no judgment. I think that's really important.
It is.
Would you say that becoming a mother changed your ambition within your career?
I think probably latterly, in the changes that I have made, I certainly wanted to set an example to my boys that, you could have a purposeful career and make that your business too. And I guess I'd seen my husband being an entrepreneur and came into contact with lots of female founders, and always sort of thought, God, I'd quite like to be doing that. What's my thing going to be? And I'm very passionate about the power of kindness and self-compassion. So I hope that my career has shown my boys that you can be kind as a leader, and that vulnerability is your superpower. You don't have to have it all worked out all of the time. It's okay to ask if you need support. Certainly hopefully created a family environment where they know that is safe, we don't only celebrate the wins. We are there for you when you need extra support too.
So would you say that burnout supported your role as a mother, would you say? Changed?
I think it made me take a really sort of in-depth look at the mum and the person that I wanted to be for the next chapter. And I realised that I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be if I was running on empty. And I think for so many of us, we forget that simple analogy of putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you're able to support others. And if we are depleted of energy, if we are running on empty, then we perhaps can't be the person that those dependents really, really need us to be. So self-care isn't about vanity, it's absolutely essential for our sanity.
I'm all for self-care. I think, for me, having my bath in the evening is an essential. For me in the morning, when I do my workout, for me, that's my non-negotiable. Yes. So then I can show up stronger for them.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential to be the person that you're needed to be.
Completely.
And if we don't stop every now and again and take stock and think, how it's all working, then we do run the risk of being on autopilot and running on empty.
It's very easy.
It's very easy to do.
Yeah. So how would you say that showing up looks like now in comparison to when you're in that leading role at Hello?
Showing up for myself, well, it's a priority because sadly I know it was a total shock to my system, to feel that my nervous system was kind of in tatters and that things felt like they were falling apart. And I think you don't ever quite understand mental health struggles until you have experienced them yourself. It's very hard to. In the same way as you often don't understand the power of kindness until you've needed it and it's been shown to you. So I'm actually quite grateful that experience all happened to me because it did make me become more aware of what success looks like and what it means to me.
That's really important. What do you think your children have learned from your reinvention?
I hope they've learned that nothing is set in stone, that it's never too late or, impossible to change course. And often, we were brought up, perhaps our generation, believing that what are you going to do when you leave school? Everybody asks you, what's your career going to be? Who are you? And I think that idea of an identity being fixed from an early age is so limiting and actually unhelpful. So I hope that my boys have realised in seeing me go through such a big change, and they actually cheered when I said I was leaving Hello, which said everything as well, because they realised they wanted me to be around more. And they have realised that your identity isn't fixed, that you can change course, and that actually is the beauty of life.
I think that's really important. I think it is important to be who you are, be who you want to be. You only get one shot at life.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Sometimes we do carry those old identities around with us for a really long time. For a long time I thought, well, I'm a wordsmith. I was always better at English and the arts, and I don't know if I could found my own business because maths and accounting, it just makes me glaze over and really isn't my strong point.
Totally.
Well, now I've realised that I absolutely can found a business, and actually I know enough maths to get by in the early stages of a business, and then I'll work with an accountant who's better at that than I am. So there shouldn't be blockers that we've carried with us for such a long time, and often those identities really are put on us at a young age, and coaching really helps you to unpick those and start to tell different stories.
And to ask for help.
Crucially.
Definitely. When things are getting quite tough now, what's your reset routine?
I have changed quite a few things, and I'm all about micro habits and just bringing in some small doable rituals that can make a difference cumulatively. I mentioned that sleep was an issue for a period of time. So I've been doing this just since the beginning of the year. I have mobile phones out of the bedroom. At bedtime, I bought myself a little wooden alarm clock. I went totally back to basics. And my husband and I have those both in the room. And I get into bed now, when I've put the kids down, they go to bed a bit later now. So you get less time in the evenings as your kids get older. But I know that I have a really good sleep if I read a few pages of a novel before I go to bed, and put my phone away a bit earlier. So that is quite a routine that I have now in the evening, and I sleep so much better for it. And I wake up when the alarm goes off and open the blinds, look at the sky, set your circadian rhythm earlier, which has such a huge impact again on then the sleep cycle later in the day. Getting out in nature, I've mentioned a few times. I think getting to wherever you've got a green space in whether that's your garden or a local park, and clearing the head has been proven. And again, that can be a 10-minute walk. It doesn't have to be sort of huge stretches of time. So building these micro moments that are going to best support me have become non-negotiable.
What would you say for how can women look to prioritise their energy and their well-being? What would be your top tips?
Well, I think realising that we can be in energy deficit, and just that simple realisation that it might not be a question of time, but how you're expelling your energy. So I like to think of my working week in terms of my energy as much as my time now. So I use kind of micro focusing moments. Really, the human brain can only focus on something in detail for 25 to 30 minutes. I don't know if you've heard of the Pomodoro technique.
No.
Yeah, the Pomodoro technique is based on it's Italian for tomato, that little tomato timer. Do you remember seeing those kitchen timers? Where you can set it for 25 minutes or 30 minutes and you just you focus on a task for that period of time. So I try to now, if I've got things to do that often can drag on for a whole week, like perhaps looking at my accounts and expenses or putting in the expenses or a project I've been working on, I'll think, right, I'm going to do that in one Pomodoro or two, like with a little break in between, and then giving yourself that micro 5-minute break in between to go and make a coffee, go outside, look at the sky, do something else, and then back to focus. Makes a massive difference. Building in those moments of thrive time and things that bring you joy. Joy is often forgotten as we go through the busyness of our lives. And again, most of those things are often free. Reconnecting with things that brought you joy when you were a child, perhaps, as well. And I've got friends that have taken up dancing again recently. And actually seeing those as, building communities, new communities around those. Getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that feel a little bit scary. Doing a high rocks that I did recently. And you did as well. Yeah, having a challenge like that to work towards, I really enjoyed, to prove to myself that I can be as strong in the choices I make and in my mind as in my body as I go through my 50s now.
How was your high rocks?
I loved it.
Was it really good?
Yeah, and I actually trained for it pretty quickly because I had a horrible chest infection which knocked out most of January. And then I hit it in sort of February and the beginning of March, and then it was in March, wasn't it? End of March. So I trained pretty fast. I did it in a pair with my PT, became a friend, and I loved it. And
have you got the bug?
I think I have got the bug. I'm thinking about Excel in December. And I loved how inclusive it is. And as we were saying, the race is only with yourself. I wasn't in it to kind of smash any particular time, although I did get slightly competitive with myself towards the end.
Good.
And, there are age categories for 70 to 75s in there, which I found really inspiring. Everybody was going at their own pace. And it was just fun to do something different and to take a day away from work to go up and do a high rocks. Bumped into people I knew on the train that were also doing it in a group. The atmosphere and being part of a community is really amazing, because I think it can be really limiting when all of your status is linked to one thing, like mine was for a long time at Hello. And then when that starts to derail or feel uncertain, you can feel really lost about what your identity is. But when you have lots of bits of status involved in lots of different communities, whether that is the High Rocks community, whether that's a PTA community at the school, whether that's your community of friends where you always do something together, whether that's your book club, there are so many different ways to have a bit of status in lots of things. And I think it's much more healthy. and less destabilizing then when one starts to feel a bit uncertain, as it will, nothing lasts forever, then you've spread out that status and hopefully that joy.
How do you know when it's time to let go of a chapter?
I think that comes down to listening to your internal voice. I think my internal voice for a couple of years, as I mentioned, had been saying to me that things weren't working quite as well as they once did. And I just pushed that voice aside for quite a long time and carried on. And I think if your needs aren't being met or your values aren't being met, then that is going to be a fast track to burnout. So I now have those values that I mentioned written out on a post-it note on my computer, so that whenever something comes in or I think, oh, I would really like to do that, but does it work? Does it hit my values? So always holding those close makes you then able to identify that perhaps that chapter is done and you need to move into a next one.
Talk to me about your role as ambassador at the Wellbeing of Women charity.
Oh, yeah. So I've worked with them for a number of years. Initially, during my role at Hello, we launched a campaign together called the Menopause Workplace Pledge, which was to better support women going through perimenopause and menopause in the workplace. There are now thousands of UK organisations signed up to it, everyone from Tesco to HSBC to Boots, sort of leading brands have now signed up to this pledge, which isn't just about a tick box. It's about actually doing something to properly support women as they go through this life stage, which is huge. You know, all women will go through it, yet we didn't learn about it at school. It feels as though the conversation is only just beginning in some ways, but it's great. We've come a long way in recent years in opening up that conversation, but still there's more that could be done at an organisational level. And sometimes that does mean flexibility to go to appointments that you might need to go to. Sometimes it means having good, cooling systems in the office when it's particularly hot. Tesco made changes to the uniform that women can wear when they're going through perimenopause and menopause because there were complaints that it was just too hot and not breathable. So it can be quite simple things that can make a huge difference and tackle those statistics that sees 1 in 10 women in the UK drop out of the workforce, potentially at the top of their game, due to menopause symptoms.
That stat is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'd love to know what it is now, actually, because that was the stat a few years ago when we launched the campaign. So I wonder whether it's had an impact.
It's definitely spoken about a lot more.
It really is. And that was kind of the beginning of those conversations.
Wow.
And it felt very sort of close to me as well, because I was going through that at that time. And it's really hard because, again, there's not a one size fits all. Some women sail through the perimenopause with barely any symptoms. For others, it can be really debilitating. So there's a huge scale. And for some, HRT is a really good solution. For others, it doesn't work so well. But there are options out there. There's lots of different ways that you can seek support. But actually advocating for yourself and getting in front of the right person is really the first step. It was game-changing for me, actually, because I initially had a doctor's appointment around perimenopause and I was prescribed antidepressants, which happens to a lot of women. But then, after working on this campaign and being better able to advocate for myself, I was able to call up the surgery and ask for an appointment with the clinic's menopause expert, because not every doctor can be an expert in absolutely every part of health, especially when it comes to women's health. And then that was a game-changing appointment because I was in front of the right woman who kind of understood, who said, right, these are all the options. You don't need to feel like this. We can help you.
What would you say that's bringing you most joy in your life right now?
Oh my God, so much is bringing me joy right now. Every time I run a reinvention retreat, I am literally skipping out of the door afterwards, just on such a high, feeling that what I am doing and building can be of impact and so purposeful to other women just means the world. So, and being able to skip back home to my kids, the retreats end at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I was like, they're for busy parents who want to get home for tea time. So I've created the life that fits into the schedule that works for me. And hopefully, it seems to be working for lots of other women too. And the fact that you can make money and grow a business with purpose at its heart. Actually, the money and the business side of it doesn't always have to come first. The purpose can come first. And I feel really passionately about that. So now my working life doesn't feel like work. I absolutely love it. And I don't think I'll ever retire. And I'm embracing midlife, and I feel so lucky to be healthy, happy, and have all these years ahead of me.
I love that. And that obviously brings back, for me, it brings back when you mentioned the midlife calling.
Yes.
So positive.
The calling, that it's not a crisis. Perhaps you're going through a reinvention moment. So starting to reframe challenging times in that way can be so helpful.
And so what would you say that's a dread at the moment? Got to look at it as a whole.
Well, I wouldn't say a dread. I mean, there'll be more challenging times ahead, as when we enter midlife, we have a huge life-changing moments. We're going to lose people that we love. Our kids are going to leave home. There are going to be moments that will be difficult, to navigate. But I hope now, with a greater understanding of what's going on in my brain, the neuroscience of it coupled with the coaching, I'm aware of that, and hopefully we'll be able to navigate it in a way without kind of it feeling like a breakdown.
What would you say your top tips are for women who are wanting to start something if they're in a 9 to 5 and they're actually wanting to leave that?
Don't forget to pause. Just acknowledge those feelings. Perhaps journaling could be really helpful. It's proven. I think it's 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. So journaling was a really useful tool to me. So maybe start to build in a pause moment around journaling. Start to get those thoughts down. Some visualizing helped me as well, starting to think, if I could see myself in 2 years' time and I'm really happy and I've got the work and home life that feels joyful and would be fulfilling, what does that look like? So start to make those thoughts become a bit tangible before you do anything about it. Hold yourself in pause and reflect. And then when we've done enough sort of pause and reflection, then maybe you're ready to start thinking about what is the first small step forward that you could take. For many women, that is coming on my reinvention retreat. They step through the door thinking, hey, God, I've just allowed myself to think that I'm destined for something more. And often that might be sort of flexing that idea or the desire to start your own business, or it might be just saying out loud, I'm not fulfilled by my job anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And that can be an emotional moment. But putting yourself in a room where you feel seen and supported and can gain some new skills can all help build confidence to create that next chapter.
I love it. I've got to touch on your role as editor at the column for the Corinthia, because Corinthia is very close to my heart because that's where I got married. So I absolutely love the Corinthia. Yeah. So tell me all about that.
Fabulous place to get married. Well, what is really lovely is that it marks a full circle moment for me, because I was in a hotel room at the Corinthia when I woke up that day after the big hello event and thought, I'm done with this life. The event had been at the Corinthia. And now I host my reinvention retreats at Corinthia London, and I edit their lovely luxury in-house magazine called The Column. It just comes out twice a year. You can pick it up in reception at Corinthia London. It's in all the bedrooms for 6 months at a time. And so instead of, again, turning somewhere that could be somewhere that I avoided or felt negative, I've actually turned it into part of my reinvention. So every time I step in there and ready to host one of my retreats, I think of that woman that was me 5 floors up that day, having her moment. And it reminds me that reinvention is always possible.
That's amazing. I love that. So it's literally a full circle.
It is a full circle moment.
That's so nice. That really is lovely.
All around, though, confronting those challenging times and remembering that in the most challenging times, that is when we actually grow the most. Sometimes we can't obviously see it when you're going through it, but you will look back and you will be proud at how you navigated it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I always say with every negative, there's a positive.
Yes.
I'm such a believer of that.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I've got some quick fire questions for you. No thinking, just answer. Okay. What's in your wellness kit?
Oh, trainers, definitely. So I can get outside. I think mindset shifts, actually, that doesn't, obviously that's not something tangible that you can hold, but always looking for a way to reframe a crisis into a calling. My wellness kit as well would have to involve my boys, because there is nothing that makes the endorphins flow more than cuddles with them. That's an instant kind of soother. And what else? Oh, we've recently had our bathroom done up. So something nice. I have to remind myself that I've actually got a bath that I like now. So sort of getting into that really does so much for my wellness as well.
The stupidest wellness fad you followed?
Gosh, well, I don't really think it's stupid, but it does feel a bit crazy when you're doing it. Have you ever done EMS strength training?
Yes.
When you get all the things attached and you feel like Lara Croft.
Yes.
I went through a real phase of doing that regularly. I haven't done it for a while, and I would actually like to do it again. So I don't think it's stupid. I think you look a bit stupid when you're doing it. But 20 minutes of EMS training is the equivalent to like an hour and a half in the gym or something.
Do you think it works?
I did feel really strong at the time, when I did it. But I mean, I am a bit of a faddist. I love seeing and hearing about new things and thinking, oh my God, is this going to be it? And giving it a go, because I think I've got I'll give it a go attitude generally in life. So I felt a bit ridiculous. Certainly my kids, when they occasionally saw me doing that, they'd be like, what the hell are you doing with the instructor who lives locally? So I did enjoy it and I would do it again, but I felt a bit silly doing it.
Morning routine or evening reset?
Oh, God. Well, I've talked to you about my morning routine, which I'm pretty wedded to. And then evening, I have a routine as well. I have to do my...
Which is your number one?
Oh, the number one. Okay. Morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Because it sets you up for the day?
It sets me up for the day. If I've had a good morning, if I've got out, looked at the sky and kind of moved a little bit, then I'm on a good path.
Love it. One word that that defines your chapter right now?
Well, it's got to be reinvention.
A boundary you'll never break again?
Working too much in terms of time. As I've mentioned before, manage your energy, not your time.
What fills your cup?
My family.
Rest or hustle?
Rest now. But you need a bit of both.
What's your go-to workout when you're short on time?
A run, without a doubt.
Green juice or margarita?
Oh, well, I don't like tequila, so it would be green juice. If you'd said champagne or green juice...
I'm with you. I am with you.
I probably would have said champagne. I can't drink a lot these days. That is one of the most annoying things about perimenopause. Yeah, doesn't sit in quite the same way, but a cold glass of champagne,
don't.
You can't beat that.
You can't.
Should we have one now? Is
Yes,
it too early?
We spoke. I've got
to drive.
I have got a bottle open in the fridge. No, you definitely should.
You deserve one.
That's just so sweet, as do you. Something that you're proud of that no one sees?
My ability to reinvent and to keep going. I think we should all actually feel proud of ourselves for keeping going through challenging times.
Rosie, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed chatting with you today. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Oh, well, you can find me on Instagram. I hang out quite a lot, Rosie J. Nixon, and via my website, rosienixon.co.uk. There's always retreats being advertised up there. So come and explore some reinvention magic.
And when's your book, your 5th book?
And the new book, it's going to be called The Pro Method. And that is coming out at the end of August, ready for September and fresh starts.
I love it.
So if you need some extra inspiration and practical advice on where to start navigating change or creating the reinvention you want to see in your life, that's a good place to start. It's the book I was looking for.
And
So I wrote it.
that's the thing, exactly. That is the thing, give it to a busy lady.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I so hope everyone has enjoyed today. Make sure you hit subscribe and tell all your friends, and come and join our next one where we've got more incredible female founders to join us on the sofa.